Hey, good morning.
Well, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Hey, thanks for doing this podcast interview with me. I appreciate it, man. It's going to be cool.
Give me a minute. I got to adjust my volume.
Okay.
All right. I think that works.
Yeah. Hear me? You hear me loud and clear now?
Loud and clear.
Very good. Yeah, you sound loud and clear too. It's good. So I think we're all in good shape and a good setup here. Um, so kind of how this goes, like Michael will do post-production editing, so we can edit stuff if we need to. So if we have to break character for a little bit to get our bearings, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Michael can figure it out. But it's really just pretty casual, man. I have an introduction written, so I'll read that off of like the intro to the podcast episode. And then we'll just start getting into conversation. I have some scripted questions here for us to go over. Hopefully, you've looked over those at least and kind of know what we're going to be talking about. Um, and yeah, so when we get done, Michael will edit this into a podcast episode. We'll put it onto our Apple Podcast and YouTube and all of the spaces. Then we run it through a software called Video AI, and it gives us all these clips, different like YouTube shorts and little video clips. And so I've got a couple of questions in there that talk about um, your practice and talk about farmers, ranchers, landowners, those folks. So we'll take some of those clips that are more like maybe tell the story and the things that can go onto your website as well, onto your YouTube channel. And they'll be edited to where they don't feel like a podcast episode. It'll just feel like a video of you. Do you see what I mean? But you can link to the podcast and we're going to link to your site. So a couple of cool things that happen with that is that builds your link authority from an SEO perspective. So that's what, so the more videos we can get on our YouTube channel and in the description of our YouTube videos, we're going to link to your website. Those are link authority, link building, the whole numbers go up. So we'll do all of that stuff. And then we'll give you the video files to do that are appropriate. That makes sense for you to use into your marketing wherever you want to. Okay.
Great.
Sound cool?
Sounds great.
All right. Anything you want to, any other questions you wanted me to make sure I asked or added to this, or do you feel like we have a good structure here?
Um, the you bring up enrolling the team in your total sales mastery, the
Mm-hmm.
sales coaching at the end. Um, I would almost bring that up sooner.
Okay.
And then as I talk about the other things that you've got here, I think talking about how I was encountering those things and how your sales coaching um, not only helped me implement things, but also helped me develop things.
Okay, so maybe I lay that framework instead of asking that question at the end. Maybe I just lay that framework in the introduction that you focused on sales training. That way the seed's kind of planted and then you can just speak on stuff as it comes up. Does that make more sense, you think?
Yeah, because I mean, I was I was only I only had a vision. I only had a thought as to what I wanted to create, and I didn't know how to do it. And being involved with you in the training process allowed me to develop what I have.
Okay.
It wasn't like I had this ultimate goal, and you were part of that goal. I mean, you were really instrumental in me developing my goals as well.
Got it. Cool. Okay, so I'll bring that up. I'll kind of add that to the intro of like, because I talk about when I get into like adding the associates and all that stuff, because I think that's how I'm going to promote this to get people to watch, like other attorneys to watch,
Yeah.
is like a lot of guys are in this solo position and they feel like, I'm overstretched. And so they kind of just back off the gas a little bit. Do you see what I mean? Versus leaning into that abundance of like not having the capacity. And I felt like you leaned into that where it was more difficult versus retreating back. You see what I mean? In terms of like adding staff and adding associate attorneys and all that is added expense. And then what percentage do you take and what percentage do you hand off, even with people not knowing? So I think that's where a lot of the sales training comes in, right? It's like, well, you wanted that confidence to hand that off as long as people were getting closed, right? Like if they're not, then it makes it more difficult. So good call. I'll add that to the introduction, that you put a emphasis on sales training and making sure that it wasn't just about warm bodies. It was about closing and profitability and being able to set those goals realistically, like off of actual data. So yeah, I'll add that up to the top and then we won't have to, I just kind of threw that in there at the end. Do you see what I mean? Because I didn't want to make it about the sales coaching. Do you see what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to make this podcast a promo for that. Do you see what I'm saying? But I think it is a necessary or important aspect of how you gain that confidence to lead people into Jeff and Bill and that sort of a thing.
Yeah, that right there, gaining the confidence to be able to do the things I did, knowing I was taking a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Having somebody like you saying, no, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to consider. That was instrumental.
Okay, cool. I'll add that to the intro. And so the way this will go is I have my introduction just written here. I'll add an ad lib, the sales training part where it makes the most sense, but I'll read this introduction off, kind of do a build up like, and here's David, like I'll do that sort of introduction thing. Then we'll just get into the questions and we'll roll through. Okay. And it's just conversation. So like I said, Michael will do all the editing and post. So if you're like, you know what, I'd like to change my answer or redo that, like perfectly fine to do, but not super necessary to wig out on that stuff. So we already have the recording rolling. So I'm just going to go ahead and get into the introduction and read that off. And then we'll get into the questions. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. All right, welcome everybody to the Marketing Lawcast. Today we have a special guest who has dedicated over 2 decades to helping families navigate the complexities of estate planning. Please join me in welcoming David Payne, an experienced and respected estate planning attorney based in Southwest Missouri. Now, David has a deep-rooted connection to the area. It's where he spent his childhood years. It's where he pursued his education at the University of Central Missouri and the University of Missouri in Columbia. And after earning his law degree in 1999, David returned to his hometown to establish his legal career and has been serving the community ever since. With over 20 years of experience, David has developed a unique perspective on estate planning, offering his clients the benefit of his extensive knowledge and practical insights. His goal is always to leave clients better off than when they first walk through the door. Today, we're thrilled to have him here today to share his experience, his expertise, his insights on growing an estate planning practice, hiring associate attorneys and staff, and doing all of it profitably. David has put a lot of emphasis on training for his staff to make sure that they're in the right position to where he and his teammates have confidence to grow the practice profitably. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. So we'll kind of get into a little bit of your history. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about your law practice.
Yeah, I've been practicing law now for 25 years, all of it in rural Southwest Missouri. And as I started out, like many rural attorneys, I was a general practitioner. Estate planning is something I've always done, but maybe started out as 10, 20% of my practice. Primarily, I viewed myself as a litigator. I wanted to be in the courtroom. And that's what I did primarily for 18 years, with estate planning being something I also did. About 7 years ago, I knew I needed to switch things up. I knew that continuing down the path of the litigator was not for me. And expanding my estate planning practice, that's what drew my interest, and that's kind of led me to where I am today.
Yeah. And so how did you make that transition to estate planning specifically? Did you have to let other things go? Did you draw a hard line in the sand and say, I'm no longer litigating, I'm only doing these things? Or was it sort of like an organic process where it sort of weeded itself out?
Yeah, I never would have envisioned that I could have had an estate planning only practice at the time. I My experiences led me to believe that I would have to be a litigator in my rural communities in order to generate the revenue and to keep busy. Never would have envisioned that estate planning only was possible. So the first move was, yes, I started limiting my litigation. And the idea was I could be half-time in the courtroom and then half-time estate planning. And within the first 4, 5, 6 months of that half and half kind of recipe I had mixed, I was seeing that, yes, full-time estate planning was possible. And that's when I shifted. And that was about 6.5 years ago to full-time estate planning only.
Fantastic. Um, when you made that decision and you kind of look at your strengths, everybody kind of does that SWOT analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. As an attorney, when you made that transition, what did you feel like was your biggest strength that gave you the ability to make that transition?
Well, I don't know if it's so much my biggest strength as much as what I viewed as the opportunity in my community. A lot of the older attorneys who had been doing it for years were starting to retire, and there was more and more of a need to get filled there. Um, so opportunity may have been my biggest strength, and the opportunity that was being presented to me um, interested me, and I was curious. How do I form a law practice based upon only estate planning?
Yeah, I think that is so important for those that are listening to recognize what your market is demanding and where those opportunities are, and to look and see uh, where you have those opportunities and where you can lean in. It takes some chutzpah to lean into that. Um, what's your favorite thing about estate planning now, about what you do now versus maybe litigating before? What's the best part about it?
Oh, I don't know if there's one thing I can just identify and say this is the best part. Absolutely, I would say the ability to manage and control my practice would be very, very high on the list. As a litigator, you're kind of left up to the whims of judges and opposing counsel and all sorts of different things. And with estate planning, typically speaking, you can have a very controlled experience for your client. And I greatly appreciate being able to have that level of control when I'm dealing with a situation, particularly in business.
Yeah. Um, what about challenges? What's the biggest challenge that you face in your firm right now?
I would say it is as simple as focusing on the client in front of you and meeting them where they are and listening to them and their concerns and their priorities, and being able to take them through a genuine and authentic, meaningful process to maintain that discipline with every client. And that's the biggest challenge at this point.
Yeah, I can see how, for those that are listening, they're running a business and meeting with clients. So it's like they're wearing two hats. And the tendency can be to let the client work sort of be run of the mill process where it's just sort of a thing that you do, right? Versus an intentional process where you put thought and attention into each individual. And so I can see where that maybe is a pull, like where do you focus your time? And at the end of the day, what you're saying is if you focus on the client, the person in front of you, the rest of the stuff sort of works out. Would you say that that's what you're talking about?
Absolutely. I mean, also, I mean, one of my biggest challenges, of course, is to uh, have a client that is satisfied with my services. Will talk about their satisfaction of my services and come back to me. Someone that will see me as a valuable asset to their family and not just another expense that they had to incur along the way.
Yeah. Um, you know, as we've spent some time together over the years, David, and I've recognized that in Missouri, you and your firm, and it's not just you because you have associate attorneys and you have staff. We're going to talk about those folks here in a little bit. But as your firm, you've developed a reputation for working with farmers and landowners. Um, Tell me about how you got that reputation and what are the biggest issues that you solve for these folks and their families?
Well, again, that's how I got that reputation, may be based upon the opportunities of Southwest Missouri and my clients and what they were needing. Clearly, we have lots of farmers, we have lots of landowners. And so that was the need of the community. And real estate is something that I litigated a lot about. I'd had a lot of experience up and down dealing with all of the problems that can come with real estate ownership, and with all the problems that can come with the transitions for farmers and landowners to get from where they are to that place that they know they need to get, whether that be as a result of an inheritance or if it's the result of the development of their own farming operation.
Yeah, I know that not too long ago, we went through some sales training with a couple of your associate attorneys, and the heart that they had for the farmers and the ranchers and the understanding that they had about what those family dynamics are like, I was really impressed by that. I think that makes a big difference in, like you talked about before, the repeat business, people coming back, seeing you as a trusted advisor. When your firm, not just you, but your firm can take care of those folks at that higher level, that I think contributes to the reputation, that contributes to the better reviews and overall profitability and kind of carving out a niche within a niche. Like you do estate planning, but then obviously for mom and pop, but you have this sort of narrow lane where you have this focus on the farmers and ranchers or farmers and landowners that make those folks feel special. I think that's really important. David, a lot of people are tuning into this podcast episode. They're watching because they want to know how and when to add an associate attorney to their firm. A lot of these solo attorneys, they have maybe a paralegal, maybe an office admin person. They're sort of stretched at their capacity, but they're scared to take that leap of hiring an associate. Could you tell me a little bit about your firm history, maybe what kind of the indicators were that told you that you were ready to hire an associate? What were those things that kind of showed you that it was the time was right?
Well, it would the indicators um, were basically, I knew I was ready to do something based upon the goals I had already established for myself. My three primary goals were I wanted to be the best option for every client that walked in my door. I wanted to be the best attorney for that person. So that was a goal. I wanted to provide elite service. And I didn't just want to be another average attorney when it came to this. This was important to me. So being the best option, being the best attorney for my clients, that was a goal. Another goal was revenue. And I wanted to make money. And so where my revenues were at, there were also indicators that I was ready to move on. And another goal I had is that I wanted to work 35 hours a week. And I'm still working ultimately on all of those goals and keeping them in balance and in check. But when I was working so busy that I knew I could not be the best attorney for the person sitting in front of me because I had so many other things going on. That was an indicator. When my revenues started to kind of exceed some of my expectations, that was another indicator that yes, I could afford um, to hire people to help me. And when I was working 45 to 50 hours a week, that was clearly another indicator that I was not meeting that goal of 35 hours. So those were some of the indicators for me that said, all right, it's time to hire someone.
And how did you go about finding your associate attorneys? I know sometimes it comes down to dumb luck and somebody just falls in your lap. Sometimes you have to pursue it with intention. How did you find your associate attorneys?
I started talking about it. I started calling up the attorneys that I knew and speaking about it and seeing if they knew of anyone. And word of mouth was how it started. I had identified clearly kind of a handful of people that I thought would be good fits and started talking to them. I didn't want to rush the process. I wasn't in a situation where I had to hire an attorney or else. I mean, it was an opportunity. And so I've taken my time and made sure that when I made a hire, it was clearly a step in the right direction.
Yeah, perfect. So you have two associate attorneys on staff now, Jeff and Bill. And you also have some staff people. But right now, we're going to kind of focus our attention on the attorney hires. What were some of the expectations that you had for Jeff and Bill as you brought them on? And were those communicated?
Yeah. The first expectation is they were going to be a good fit into the culture that had been developed. As I started out 7 years ago, it was me and one staff member. And then we hired another staff member. And there was a culture that was being developed at that point. And I did not want to bring in an attorney that was going to disrupt that culture. That was really the number one expectation for myself, for my staff, and also it was incredibly important that the culture we had would be valued by who we were bringing in. So maintaining that culture, building off of that culture.
So that may be one kind of lead into one of the next questions, which are what are the keys to success with hiring these associates? And so obviously a cultural fit is going to be one of them. What do you think are some other keys to success with hiring the associates?
I would say listening to them. I'm listening to their hearts, their ambitions, their goals, their desires. I interviewed quite a few different attorneys along the way, and um, it ultimately, I think, came down to rather than me trying to force an associate into my circumstances, it was much better to be able to find an attorney that would be a good fit for our culture, but also a good fit for their particular sets of ambitions for what they wanted. I mean, these were seasoned professionals. These were valued members of the legal community. I wanted to listen to them, and I wanted to provide a place where they could thrive and meet their goals.
Yeah, I love that. That's fantastic. So it's not just all about David's goals, but to have success, which you've had success with your associate attorneys, is setting them up to where they can reach their personal goals as well. What about challenges? What are the biggest challenges that you faced in bringing on Jeff and Bill and making that a success?
Well, honestly, a big challenge was the associates that I brought in, largely I saw as peers. I didn't see myself as a leader. I didn't see myself as I'm above them in any ways. And so it was awkward for me to be in a position of somewhat, of a boss role, if you will. That was really awkward for me. And so training them as to the process of what we do, how we prepare for clients, how we take care of clients, the training aspect of that, it was hard for me to be able to think I could take on that challenge and still run my business and still take care of my clients. And so absolutely, James, you were a key aspect of that in that you could take my hires through a process that got them trained up on how we take care of clients.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit because you and Jeff and Bill went through an 8-week, or actually it was a 12-week sales coaching process with me. And it was more of just your firm and me. And just to give the listeners a little bit of insight, my sales coaching program is called Total Sales Mastery. And I think, David, you'd been through that with me years ago. And then that maybe at the beginning, maybe even a year or two after you kind of transitioned to estate planning full time, and kind of beefed up your skills on, again, how you treat the folks that come through the door. What do you focus on in your sales meetings? And I think that I think you sort of ingrained that into the culture of your firm, that we're here to serve people. We're not here just to sell trusts. We're here to build a relationship, not just have a commodity sale at the end of our initial meeting. And so I think absolutely right, kind of having that cultural buy-in from Bill and Jeff was one of the things that you wanted to accomplish and why we went through the Total Sales Mastery program. What do you think are the biggest advantages that having Bill and Jeff on the team bring to your firm?
Well, having Bill and Jeff on the team, it takes a lot off of me. And they handle things that I don't have to handle. I mean, if I am, at the table with clients, dealing with them, they can take phone calls. They can deal with some of the burning issues and vice versa. So it's the ability to have an attorney present in our offices that is really able to deal with whatever challenges we may have, whether it be with a client or with it be with you know anything that comes along with running a business and helping manage the staff.
How about revenue? What's revenue done? How's revenue been since hiring on the associates? Have you seen an uptick? Have you seen just more expense? Tell me the advantages maybe in terms of revenue, how that's worked out.
It's revenue has largely exceeded my expectations year after year after year. And we have a goal right now of monthly revenue of 125,000. And that gives us a yearly goal of 1.5 million. And 7 years ago when I started out, I never would have dreamt those or desired those. But that's where we are. And largely we're on track. We're meeting our goals. And everyone is aware of those goals and everyone pulls together. One of the things I think we did was kind of approach this in a way that was very different than the traditional law firm model, which is basically in a lot of ways kind of a broken pyramid scheme. And we formed this in a way that everybody was motivated almost in an equal fashion to drive revenue. So,
Yeah, spread that burden around. That's why one of the advantages I think of hiring on other attorneys is that we get these brilliant, like-minded people that are on staff. And when we start developing their skill set around how to bring in revenue, how to increase revenue, these are smart folks. And now you have these smart folks on your team with an inclination of how to build revenue. And I think that's the big deal. A lot of times when we hire on maybe a staff person, we see that as an expense. But when we hire on an associate attorney, we should see that as an investment into the revenue, right? That's going to bring us a return. Tell me a little bit about the experience you had with Total Sales Mastery and why you decided that you wanted to have Jeff and Bill go through the sales training. What are some of the biggest takeaways that you've seen post sales training?
First of all, I would say the sales training really challenged a lot of traditional views that were not only held by me, but are very much common amongst my colleagues in rural Southwest Missouri. And absolutely, these are a lot of beliefs that both Jeff and Bill had. We had to challenge so many of our preconceived notions, challenge so many of the things that the attorneys that we've respected and that we learned from taught us. So look at things differently. That was the challenging part, and your training allowed us to do that. Also, I will say this, referring to it as sales is still a challenge for us. I think I told you this previously, rather than sales training, I like to think of it as leadership training. And ultimately, what I mean by that is we are given an opportunity to help clients solve a major problem, and they need us to help them solve that problem. A problem that they may very well be resistant to solving themselves. So we have to show that leadership. We have to take them through the process of leading them to the point to where they are motivated to act and act now to solve their problems. Yes, it is sales. Yes, you're always selling. But in my mind, I can clean that up and I can feel a little bit differently about it if I view it as a leadership role. And I think Bill and Jeff have really responded to that mindset as well. So first of all, is the ability to challenge our own set of beliefs that were very entrenched into us. And then it was the ability to go through this process in a way that motivated the clients to act, that motivated the clients to find value in the relationship with our firm and not just see this as a transaction. And the whole process has taught me a lot about finding value. And as a business owner, I've become accustomed to now thinking about value rather than simply an expense. Because when I think about expenses, I don't want to incur them. But when I think about value, I always want to have something of value. So that mindset, and if I can get my clients to have the same mindset of looking for value, and that's when I know at the end of our meeting, when I'm asking them to hire me, they're not necessarily thinking about the number they're going to have to write on the check. Hopefully, they're thinking about the value that they found in me and in my firm and in what we're offering.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it honestly is a completely different sales model than what the traditional law firm follows. One of the things that I thought was very key to your success was you stepping into that leadership role and saying, hey guys, this is how we treat our clients. This is how we find value with each prospect. This is how we make our offers. It's always in relation to the value that we found with the person individually. It's not just what we can pontificate or what we can regurgitate about the legalese and show people how much we know. I think that both Jeff and Bill truly bought in to the cultural dynamics that you set for the firm and were lively and excited to not only learn, but then go apply and then tell me how that panned out in the next session. So they were eager to say, hey, I tried this new method. I asked these new questions and I was able to close this deal at a higher rate or faster, or have a better connection with the prospect. And that gives more confidence to those attorneys. And all of that sort of snowballs into $1.5 million in revenue a year, right?
I will say this, and I did not necessarily anticipate this, but another added value of hiring an attorney was that um, people started seeing me differently. I all of a sudden had more authority. I was more of an estate planning attorney when I had a firm, when I had other supporting attorneys. It was more of when I was just a solo guy. I didn't quite have the same, you know, oh, I don't think clients saw me the same. And I
Street
was
cred.
not prepared for that benefit by hiring other attorneys. It was actually kind of nice.
Yeah, it sort of elevates the perception of you, right? And it gives you that extra level of authority that, hey, he hired these guys on because he does so much good work. He couldn't handle it all himself. So we had to hire these guys on, but he's the leader in that. And so it kind of puts you up there on a little bit higher level of authority, which again, that's a great feeling. It is status, it's perceived status, which is, we all love that, right? But at the end of the day, it's also true that all of these things did take place, that you were the mastermind about how to solve problems for people and the cultural dynamics by which you treat those folks. Those were set by you. So it does raise that level of authority. You know, those that reach out and take that risk, they're the ones that reap the benefits. Um, what what advice would you give lawyers that are thinking about hiring an associate? If you were to just say, hey, here's some advice, even if it's recapping some of the stuff that we talked about, what advice would you give other lawyers thinking about hiring an associate?
Don't rush it. Definitely take the time to find a good fit. It doesn't have to be a perfect fit. Find someone who is going to assimilate into your culture and into your communities, but also find somebody that brings something else to the table. Somebody, I mean, if you've got a weakness of your own, if you could hire somebody that has that as a strength, um, that can be a game changer. I like one of the things, whether it be with my attorneys or with my staff, when I'm talking to them and giving them, you know, kind of a, whether it be a review or just a check-in, is I ask them what is their least favorite thing to do. And I want to remove that least favorite thing from what they have to do at all. Okay. Give it to somebody else, delegate it out. Because if we can remove what we dread the most from even being something we do, I think that's critical for people and how they feel about their job and how they can manage their own, you know, stress as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think that you do have to be able to pull the trigger at some point, but nothing's more expensive than making a bad hire. That can be the most expensive thing you can do. So, hire slow, fire fast is one of the terms that I've heard before. So that's sort of what you're saying is make sure that those folks fit into your cultural dynamics, make sure that they're proficient, look for the skill sets that they have and where they fill in the blanks that the rest of the team might have. Um, I love that, David. You've done a great job with hiring. I think you have Charity on staff too, correct? She's fantastic. Um, and then Jeff and Bill have done a great job and added to the team. Um, Tell me this, David. I know that you've had some lofty goals. You've already surpassed seven figures in your practice. What's next for you? What's the next goal that you have set?
Maintaining the culture, maintaining our standards, and that's first and foremost on the list. And I just turned 50 yesterday, and my son is 2 years away from graduating from high school. And I'm looking at the decade of my 50s um, with lots of possibilities. Not looking forward to my son getting out of the house, but when he does, I want to be able to really experience some things in life that I've never had the opportunity to. And part of that is time off. Uh, I've never had any opportunities for extended time off. So when he's out of the house, I would like to be able to have the opportunity to work 75 to 80% of the time. And I mean, so that's 2 to 3 months off. And if I can do that for the next decade when he gets out of the house, that's my goal. And be able to do it and maintain the high standards of the practice, to be able to do it in a way that also I'm maintaining my my income. And I think I can do it. We're not quite there, but I've got 2 more years to fully pull that together. But it's really it's possible now. And I mean, the thought of retiring does not appeal to me. I wouldn't know what I would do with my time. But the thought of being able to work um, 9 months out of the year, I think that would be dreamlike.
Yeah, and you've set yourself up, you've given yourself the possibility of bringing that together by thinking about your culture, by thinking about the teammates and how they serve people, and bringing on Jeff and Bill to be able to step up and handle cases so that you can take off. And that isn't really possible without a big dip in your income or your revenue if you haven't hired those associates, if you haven't taken those steps to grow the firm.
Yeah, it would be impossible. I mean, quite frankly, impossible.
David, I really appreciate our time today and appreciate you giving some insight to the folks who are maybe at that point where they're reaching their capacity, they're thinking about hiring, but they really have no clear direction or instruction on how to do that. I think you've given folks a lot to be um, thinking about and to work with as they work on growing their practice. Any closing thoughts for folks as they look to grow profitably? What are some closing thoughts you could leave them with?
Um, Absolutely. If you are thinking about continuing to develop your practice, whether that be hiring an attorney, hiring staff, whatever it may be, I would encourage you to lean into it. The opportunity is there. With our population and how it's developing and shifting, and the silver tsunami and the boomers and all of those types of things, those things are real. And that's not going to change. And so we are sitting in a situation of great opportunity. And what we do now to take advantage of that opportunity, um, yeah, the rewards are there. So lean into it.
Very good. David, thank you for your time today. And be sure to tune in next time for the Marketing Lawcast as we bring you more insights and ideas on how to grow profitably your estate planning or elder law practice.
Thank you,
David,
James.
thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I'll get you some of these clips sent over. I'll get a recording over to Michael right now. And like the stuff on the farmers and ranchers and just about the culture of how you serve people, I think those will make good shorts and clips to include on your website. And then we'll get all the backlinks sent over for you as well. And there may be some things you can add to your website. So just as we get you those assets, just talk to your web developer and get those uploaded. But man, thank you for your time today. I kind of went a little bit longer than I wanted to. I try to keep most episodes to 30 minutes, but I think we got a lot of good stuff in here. So appreciate it very much, my man.
How's everything with you?
Good, going good. Mom, did I tell you that mom has breast cancer? Did you know that? Yeah. So mom got diagnosed with breast cancer about 2 months ago, and she's retired essentially. And so left the company to me. So I'm running the whole show, and I'm trying to learn all the stuff and manage the employees. And, I've been compartmentalized in sales for forever. That's really all I've done. And we're doing well. I hired on a new salesperson named Liam, and luckily I hired him on in December of last year. And he's rolling now. He's closing like probably 3 or 4 people a month. Not at not the level that I'd like for him to close, So I'm still closing like 2 or 3. He's closing 3 or 4, and that's going fine. Um, the hard part is for me is the staff, because I didn't realize this, but everybody's like, I need help. We got to hire somebody. I need help. I'm overworked. I got to have somebody hired. And I look at their stuff and I'm like, really? I think you can get that. I think that's just fine. I think you can get it done. So I'm having a tough time with like, do I go out and hire somebody? Do I get somebody 1099 to fill in the gaps? Or do I motivate these people somehow to just step up and just do a little bit more work? Do you see what I mean? And so I'm trying to tread there, and I'm managing the ads and the ad spend and like what our budget is for ads, and I'd rather spend twice as much money than what we have spent before. But is that practical and wise? Like I'm just reading books and trying to learn, my dude, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's where
and
we're
we
at.
didn't get into it a lot in the podcast. I didn't want to, but I mean, if there's one thing I do not really enjoy, it is managing my employees when they're not doing well.
Yeah.
That that is tough for me. I don't like that. I don't want to be in a situation where I have to be critical and call them out. I mean, yeah, I have to,
Right.
but that is not something that is natural to me and desires to me. So I understand that. With your mom, sorry.
Yeah.
My mom went through breast cancer as well, and so I can relate. Is where she at with it?
She's 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 got so what she got diagnosed with is a rare, fast growing tumor or cancer in her left breast. And so she's got 12 months of chemo that she has to do. She's in month 2. So she's done 6. She's actually at an infusion right now, getting her 6th infusion. And the first 4 she was in the ER afterwards, like with heart problems and legs wouldn't work and just all kinds of crazy stuff. So we're like, is she going to survive the chemo? Like, let alone the breast cancer? But they've made some progress. And the last chemo session she had last week, she didn't get sick, didn't have to go to the hospital afterwards. So they think that they've maybe got the dosing down a little bit better. But I live in Pagosa Springs, which is 5 hours away from her. She lives in Colorado Springs. Michael lives, 30 minutes from her, and he's supposed to be helping me with the company, but he's not. He's helping her with her care and getting her to the hospital and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of on an island trying to run this thing, and I don't really want to talk to my mom about it because I don't want to stress her out, or she's like, company is not on the priorities list at all. Do you see what I mean? It's like survival. And so, you know, it's been tough. The good thing is we were running at about 150 a month or so, and we did 189 in July. So, I mean, since I've taken over, I've redone all the ads. I got a new website that we're going to launch in about a week or so when we freaking get it done. You know what I'm saying? Um, I don't know. I think we're doing really well in terms of like growth and revenue. And I've got a lot of stuff, like I've had a lot of stuff that I've wanted to do with the company, but I've just been like, hey, you shut the hell up. This is my show. You know what I'm saying? So Jennifer never really gave me any sway on stuff. And now that she's out of the way, so essentially not putting the kibosh on all of my ideas, I'm able to do a lot more creative things. I think it's gonna I think we're going to actually do extraordinarily well as our company goes. It's not so much like if you look at our marketing to this point, it's basically the Jennifer show. It's like, hey, here's Jennifer's face. Jennifer's the guru. It looks like we're a coaching company versus a marketing company, even though I do coaching. And our new website's not going to have, it's not going to be like my face. Do you see what I'm saying? Plastered all over it. It's going to be our clients, how we serve them, what we do, you know what I'm saying, the problems that we solve, and just that. Like, I'm not trying to be the celebrity. Do you see what I mean? Like, that's not where I'm trying to go. I just want to serve our clients and get the great result. And man, I didn't tell you this either, but Scorpion, you know who Scorpion Design is? Have you heard of them before? They're a
Yeah.
marketing firm. They contacted us basically like a week after mom got diagnosed and wanted to buy our company. And they offered us 5 million to buy the company. And we said no, because yeah, no. That's what I thought. I was like, oh shit, good. Okay. Well, because if they would have sold it, I guess Jennifer and Kyle, their capital gains, their starting point was zero. So it would have been exuberant capital gains. But with them leaving the company to me, they're leaving it to me at 2.5 million. Do you see what I mean? And so the basis would start at 2.5 million. So my plan is be to run this show till I'm 55 or so, and then try to sell it, try to exit out of the estate planning side. I like to open other verticals that are not necessarily just attorney driven, you know? Um, like, I don't know, whatever. I have a lot of ideas, but at least I know like generally what the company is worth, you know what I'm saying? And like what the possibilities are for the future of the company. But I think we can make a lot more money than that in the next 5 or 10 years. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the the opportunity is there for it, James. Lean in.
I took a lot of what you were, I took a lot of what you were saying to like personal heart today. Do you see what I mean?
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, one, I hate to hear that about your mom. Two, I know enough about her that if anybody's up for a fight, she is.
Yeah, true, true
Uh,
that.
and it's going to be a process for her, but she's going to make it through. I'm excited for your opportunity as well, and I know you're going to do great. So,
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Hey, I can't tell you how much that call that you gave me a couple weeks ago. I was at this conference in Miami and I got that call from you. And man, I was kind of in a rut. Do you see what I mean? Like worried about my mom, worried about the future of the company, trying to learn all this stuff from this exhibit or conference that I was at, you know, and like scrambling to cram as much in. And then I got that phone call from you. And I'll tell you what, man, it lifted my spirits so high. It put me on a whole different mental projection for how to handle that conference and what the future would look like. I can't say thank you enough. That really meant a lot to me. Like it really did a lot for me that you just called me out of the blue just to chat it up and talk about that. Like I don't want to sound sappy, but it really meant a lot to me. It built me up a lot. So thank you for that. Thank you for being more than just a client, but for being a friend and for helping me out with stuff and for your encouragement. It means a lot, dude. It really does. So thank you so much. And hope you have a great killer rest of the week.
what you just said, that's been mutual. There's been times where you've been there and done those things for me. So I appreciate you and be thinking about you and Michael and your mom and take care of yourself. And I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Absolutely, bud. Have a killer week. I'll get you these links and recording as soon as we have everything produced. Okay.
Bye.
All right, buddy.